I'm super excited to have John Scott here today. This is my first guest, so you have the honor of being my first guest. The purpose of the channel is it's still kind of figuring it out, still finding its legs because it's brand new. But I had in mind to help you at your worst, to help you get at your best. So the purpose of the channel is to help you amaze yourself. And when I think best, I think flow state. And John, I've had a few discussions with you about that, or he recommended some reading. So a little background on John. I know John as a swimmer. So Laura Young, I wrote a book, and here it is. Oh, it's upside down. I tried to hold it up there, but I think it says solo yet never alone. There's like 6 pages in you there, and she recommended that as reading when I was training for my Manitoulin swim. So I definitely read the 6 pages about you and your swims, and I was super excited when you emailed me because I already knew who you were. So John has 2 successful Lake Ontario crossings. I think you have the fastest amateur time. Is that correct?
Yeah, I certainly have the fastest amateur time, Canadian times. And there's a slight discussion recently, but I think I still hold the all-time fastest time for the traditional crossing, which is from Niagara on the Lake to Toronto.
Which is amazing. Like I think you did it in 14 hours 42 was your second attempt, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Which is wild to me. So as a swimmer, I think your stroke rate was like 62. So you're flopping your arms more than once a second, which to me is just mind-boggling for 14 hours, over 14 hours straight, you know? And now you've gone on to mentor a lot of people with these swims. You're coaching and you're writing, right?
That's right. Yeah, I've written a couple of books and I'm doing some coaching. And just to separate the two, I do some coaching, mentoring, I suppose, on the lake swims, and I've helped about 20 people across the lake as an official, and some mentoring and coaching along the way. And then separate from that, my business, I'm doing some coaching, not swimming coaching, but some, let's say, well-being coaching, focus training, growth, performance, sustainable performance coaching.
I
Let's
love
call
it. Yeah, you've definitely been a great source of wisdom for me. We've had a few conversations both before and after my swim. And the one you kind of caught me at a low. I had recently been slammed with COVID and I was kind of like, I was in a low, I was out of the pool, I was isolating. And 2 things you said to me that really resonated. One was rest as a high performance strategy. You need to rest to properly perform at your best. And the other one, your words were really inspirational to me because you said, in the long term, you'll still be ahead, even though you feel behind right now, which was good to give me some perspective. But I think the main crux of the conversation I want today is to hear about your flow state experiences. A lot of people I talk to don't know what flow is. So maybe start by giving your own definition of what flow is and maybe describe that first time, if you can remember that first time being in flow, what that was like.
Right. Okay. Thanks, Matt. Yeah, that's an exciting topic, and every single human being has the capacity to be in flow. And people may have been in flow and really not know what it was, but something that maybe everybody can relate to is sometimes you might see a golfer or an athlete. Those are the typical areas where we see it, but it doesn't exist only in sport. It exists everywhere in every aspect of life. Um, you see a golfer and they take a swing and they hit that ball beautifully, and it just looks easy. It looks magical. It looks effortless. And maybe you can easily imagine the golfer just feeling that way, just feeling like they've hit the ball perfectly. They weren't overthinking, and it just sailed off into the exact location that was intended. So, that's sort of a flow state. But my experience, Matt, was um, back years ago. I wanted to I wanted to make a Canadian national swimming team when I was swimming competitively, and I was just sorry, I was just trying to condense a big story into a short version here. But as my mind was working that way, but so I had an intention. The intention was to qualify for this men's national or Canadian national swimming team, which I had never done before. And I looked at all the times, and there was a 200-meter freestyle, which I thought I had best chance at making, although I'd never swum as fast as that qualifying time before. It was within reach, but never had been that fast. So I really focused on that over a period of time. And if we had time, I'd go in more detail how I did that. But basically, I focused with pretty clear intention on that's what I wanted, and I knew sort of how to do it. And I guess part of the I guess part of the story I'm compelled to say is that initially I thought, this is maybe impossible. And then after a while, I thought, well, this is plausible. And then as I was getting closer to the swim, I thought this is actually possible. And along that spectrum, I guess I was getting more and more motivated and I was focused in my training. And so, anyways, back to your question and trying to fine tune this is so Far Lane at Etobicoke Olympium in Toronto, I swam 200-meter freestyle. And from the moment I was behind the blocks, getting on the blocks, diving in, finishing, it was the most effortless swim I have ever done in my competitive swimming career. It felt the easiest. It felt maybe magical in a way. And I was so certain of the outcome, actually, that when I finished and touched the wall, I didn't even look up to the board, the scoreboard, to see my time because I knew I had this feeling, knowing that I did the time.
I
And
love that.
so, so everything was really very much aligned, body, mind. And I got back to the team, and the coach said, "Wow, John, you just did a great swim. That was the best time, and you qualified for that team." And I said, "I know." And he goes, "But did you look at your splits?" And I said, "Well, I'm pretty sure what they were." So I looked at the board. Anyways, the fun part I like telling, and I'm is I had the splits, the 450-meter splits in my head for a few months prior to, and every split was exactly what I had written out and planned to the
Amazing.
to the tenth of a second, except the last 50 was faster by about two tenths of a second. So
Wow.
I sort of achieved my time, anyways. So it's sort of fun for me to relive that, and thank you for the opportunity to
You
do so.
crushed it. Yeah, that's
Uh,
awesome. That's an amazing feeling. I love hearing
yeah, it
about it.
was amazing feeling, and it's amazing even to relive it. But I think really the learning maybe for your audience is that the formula I had in retrospect was I had an intention, I had a skill level that I was continually working on, I had a goal, so a goal intention, a goal time, well defined, simply defined, not like a whole like binder full of whys or whatever. Very, very simple, very, very focused.
So
And
what
every
was your
workout,
why, if you don't mind me cutting you off there? Was it to make the team? Was that your why?
yeah, the why was to make the team. I'd never made a Canadian men's national team. We went to New Zealand, which was great. But really, yeah. So I had a why, had a goal, and I think that one of the aspects of flow that I know is sort of part of the traditional formula is that the goal is very slightly ahead of the skill level. So your audience would know that if somebody gives you a goal that's like totally without possibility of doing, right? Somebody says you have to run, a 4-minute mile, and like, okay, you know what? Forget it. I'm not even going to show up. Like, I give up before I even start. But if you have, and then the other side of it is somebody says, run an 8-minute mile. You go, okay, that's like boring. Like, I can. So there's this idea. There's a formula. I don't have it to show in the here, but it's kind of a formula of like high stress when you can't make the goal, you can't make it, and then sort of boredom when it's just the goal's so easy, like you're bored. But
It's
in
the
the middle,
perfect amount.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's a channel, like a flow channel, essentially, where we're in this area, you're kind of maximally challenged, and actually the goal is slightly ahead. So you know that it's possible. You're inspired. It's an intrinsic goal. You wanted to do it for yourself, not because somebody said you got to do it, but you found the internal drive. You really want to do it for the sake of the goal,
So
not
can I take you back a little bit?
yeah, yeah.
How did it feel when you knew you made the team? What was that feeling like when you knew
Well,
that when you achieved your why? Was it, did you get a high and then a low, or were you high like were you ecstatic when? What did that feel like?
yeah, well, thanks. I mean, even, the fascinating thing, and we can go on and on, but I'll try not to, is even that idea of remembering a feeling is really powerful because we're kind of emotional beings. And so even when you say, tell me, John, the feeling, this was a very long time ago. And that feeling still exists in me. Like it just like the shivers down my spine. I just go, wow, that was real. And so really, I guess, Matt, what the feeling was this sense of, yeah,
Hell yeah, you crushed
you
it. It
know,
was pride. You're really
like
happy for yourself.
this
Incredible.
happened. I didn't, my style, I guess it was, I didn't jump around and whatever.
It was
Uh,
internal. It was more internal than
it's just
external.
like this. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love it.
Right. And I did it. I knew I did it. And I think the confirmation was I was at the airport with the team and, we were given tickets to New Zealand and I get all the gear from like the team gear, whatever. And I go, yeah, okay, this is real. Like I made the team. So I was very proud of myself and I felt really amazing. I felt this sense of personal power, not overpowering somebody, but this sense of, hey, I being amazed myself,
Yeah, that's it.
right?
Flow is amazing yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
I
so
call
it
it
felt,
an expansion of self. That's
yeah,
the term. I'm a
expansion of self.
philosopher,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah,
you did something you didn't think you could, and
right.
then you're kind of like, holy shit, I did that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was really, really, really cool. So we can access that. I mean, it doesn't, we're not living in flow day in and day out, but the other fascinating elements to flow, Matt, which you may know, is that from a neurological standpoint, there's some stuff happening in our brain. And so apparently there's, part of our brain deals with self-doubt. So or self-doubt, I can't do it, whatever. And I think I sort of worked through that, but there's the inner critic and then time, sense of time. Okay, it's how fast did I go? But so apparently when you're in this flow state, it's like the brain like turns off the inner critic, turns off the self-doubt, turns off the time mechanism, which is our sense of time in a day. So we've got three key features in our brain turned off. And and I think that's sort of familiar to me because when I did that swim, I didn't really have a sense of, I mean, I knew I'd made the time, but I didn't have a sense of thinking about the time or how fast am I or like my mind was very silent.
You just dialed in.
Yeah. So I wasn't really thinking. I wasn't really um I wasn't checking in with myself like, oh, am I gonna make the time or I hope I make the time or the guy beside me's faster. Like I wasn't even aware. I can't even tell you if there was a guy in the lane beside me because that wasn't part of my experience. The whole thing was just this state of quiet mind, but very powerful.
I
And
love it.
just executing the mission in a very powerful but silent way, if that sort of makes sense.
It
But
makes
yeah,
sense. I think it's a really hard concept to grasp unless you have the experience. You can,
yeah,
it's like an experiential knowledge, right? Like, or sometimes
yeah,
you've had the experience, you just don't have the word for it, or you weren't
yeah,
aware you had the experience. But
yeah,
for me, like, I remember my first flow, but this episode's about you. But after I had it, I was just like, what was that? And I researched, and I'm like,
yeah,
that's what this was. It was cool to
yeah,
have a
yeah.
word to it. So that's your first awareness that you had flow, or deep awareness that you had flow. What would you describe, and can you tell me about it, please? Your deepest flow experience. When was the deepest flow experience of your life, if you're comfortable sharing that?
Yeah,
Or one of
yeah,
them. Doesn't have to be
yeah.
the deepest,
I'm
but
comfortable sharing. It's a really long story, but the very short version is, I guess, on my Lake Ontario swim, my second attempt, the first time I made it across the lake, the conditions were quite difficult, and the first 7 hours were extremely difficult. And after 7 hours, I was almost ready to. Well, I never thought of giving up, but I was really depleted, and so I stopped for a bit, and try to regain my focus. And so I did. And what happened, Matt, was fascinating because I started to swim again. I started to get focused. I started to get back to why I'm there. And something happened where I realized then there's something I realized I could make it. I realized I just had to keep swimming to make it. I realized I had the skill level. So I had those ingredients. And frankly, I just put the pedal down. And the last 7 hours, I finished stronger than when I started.
I love
And
it.
and they, you know, my recollection, maybe not be perfect, but my recollection is that typically they stop a swimmer. So like, hey, Matt, when you did you stop, have some feeding every half hour, 40 minutes or 20 minutes, whatever is the preference. But they kept trying to stop me and I wouldn't be interested in stopping. And I really
That's how
didn't.
deep the flow was. You didn't
Yeah, it
want it
was
to
just
stop.
deep.
Yeah.
And I guess the other thing, which, you know, I love speaking with you and just go on and on. But anyway, simply put, um, something I've talked about before in to try to exemplify this. If you've ever gone into a big store, appliance store that sells TVs, and you can imagine TVs on a wall, and you can say, oh, I want that one maybe, or and so I imagined in my head there was all these TV sets, and I played a game with myself to try to figure out what was going on while I was swimming. And I pretended there was a TV sets, and I pretended there were all these different channels to see what would happen. And in my mind, they were all turning off. So they actually would turn off, and then there was only one TV on in the middle. And it was just like, just do it, right? Just do it, like
Just
execute
this. Just
is
this.
this. So, and then I tried having a negative thought. I tried to say, oh, why am I here? And I'd rather be at home.
You
I
tried?
actually,
Like you had that awareness to
yeah,
try? Wow.
I intentionally tried to throw into the pot, so to speak, a negative thought to see what would happen. It just evaporated. So,
Yeah.
so I couldn't even hold, like I was so deeply in this state of execution that I couldn't hold a negative thought. I couldn't, the flow state was so powerful, I guess, that it was just deflecting any of the stuff that a lot of us, me included, get consumed with these random thoughts, which are take our energy and distraction. I couldn't actually hold those. And near the end, yeah, I finished really strongly, really focused, just very powerfully. And that was like an incredible personal experience for me that I don't often talk about, but I guess it reminds me, and trying to bring this back to everybody, is we all have this enormous potential within us. We don't often exercise it, I would say, more powerful than we think we are. And there's ways to access it. And you don't have to, I'm not, this shouldn't really, the takeaway should not be about swimming a lake or whatever.
It could be anything you love doing,
Yeah,
right? It
anything
could
you
be
love
anything you
doing.
love doing. Yeah.
Yeah, anything you love doing. And it could be a small thing, could be a relationship or work or anything where you kind of bring on those elements that create this flow state, this richness into that, like
So on
truth.
that subject,
Yeah.
have you had flow since then outside of swimming, like through another activity
Yeah,
that's maybe
yeah.
not physical, or like maybe have you had it writing, or have you had it in any other? Well, yeah, just have you had it any other experiences?
Yeah, I have had any other yes, I have. And I think there's two answers to that. One is like last year I published two books. I guess I wrote two books and published them. Excuse me. And I remember there were times when I was writing that where I was just into it. Like I didn't know what time it was. I didn't really, it wasn't clear exactly how much time. I was just wanting to not, it wasn't even wanting. It was like wanting is sort of this push or something. I was just in it. I was just in it and enjoying it and fine tuning it and coming up with this creative, oh, I'm going to add this and finish that. But, and it was just this. So flow is like ease, right? It's just ease and creativity. It's just executing ease and creativity. So those are, more recent things. But I think more broadly, and maybe experts in flow might say, "Oh, John, you're off track here." But I think I think there's other elements that we could just bring our attention to, or increase our awareness of, or notice more of these. these times in flow, maybe we're walking down the street and we notice some nature, something, a tree or a flower, or we're maybe with a friend, and we're just in this state of sort of being really present, really focused, really there, like not somewhere else, like not on the sidewalk, but in Florida in our heads or something, but just really present and really. And I think that's a form of flow. It's not really maybe goal oriented, but I think it's a state where we can access this present moment awareness and be really skillful in that moment, whatever it is. Like be present, be a really great listener, be a really great friend, or at work, executing. Oh, I've got this answer to this problem at work. And it's just, you know, just feels so right. Just feels like, wow, I got this.
Yeah, it's just a wonderful experience, and I love just hearing you talk about it and seeing you relive this memories. Like you can feel it, that you're remembering that feeling. So maybe we got maybe 10 minutes left. So I'm trying to
Yeah.
wrap up a
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so my next question was, are there things that you realized that helped you get into flow, and what took you out of flow? So maybe I'll start with the second one because you mentioned you didn't want to stop feeding because you thought it would take you out of flow. And from my swimming experience, when I'm in a flow and my feeders stop me, it does take me out of the flow sometimes, right?
Yeah.
So I thought that's really interesting that you made the choice because that's a long time to swim without. Were you hydrating or like no hydration, no nutrition?
Yeah. So just to be clear, like if somebody was to rewind the tape, I don't think there is a tape, but I like my recollection is I stopped and maybe had, about that much water. Um, I don't remember eating. But I also don't remember like saying I just didn't feel the need, right? Like
Yeah,
I
well,
felt this,
I don't want to stop when I'm in flow, but I stopped to take myself out of it because
yeah,
I thought your experience is contrary to what my intuition that like
yeah,
I'm gonna bonk if I don't, but it's
right.
from you didn't
Yeah.
bonk. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
no, I know there's that, and people say, well, I don't know how you did that. It was impossible. Or somebody said it's impossible to do this. And I know it's not like recommended, don't try this at home sort of thing. It's not, you should feed. But anyways, but I think distractions in this world, and I'm really working on that myself personally, which is another topic, is distractions are really an enemy of flow. Um, Distractions are an enemy of kind of more of a rich experience, kind of moment to moment. So I do get distracted, and I think distractions generally take us out of flow. So, um, or maybe not distractions, but also unclear intentions or unclear. Somebody threw out this term the other day. They saw it in a reading. I don't know. I couldn't credit the person. I'm sorry, but this no, like don't take no arbitrary actions. Don't take arbitrary action. So this means, oh, I think I'm just going to go grab something to eat now. Or I think I'm going to like just these actions that are arbitrary based on our mind of taking us places. Where are our thoughts taking us at this moment? Um, so there's distractions. I think unclear goals. I think
So
is the other.
purpose, a well-defined purpose is a
Yeah,
really good one to bring you into
yeah,
flow. And if you don't
right.
have that, it's going to take you out.
Right. Yeah, I
Okay.
would say, yeah, it's easy. Like it's a weak flow if there's no purpose. Yeah. So um I guess what keeps me in flow is those times where I say, okay, this is what I really want to accomplish now. And then I execute it. And um so it takes a few minutes sometimes to get in there, but I think the elements are like creating an environment where you don't have distractions. So turn your phone off, tell people, or find a place or a time where you're not going to be distracted. So create the environment, help yourself by creating an environment where you eliminate distractions as much as possible. Have a really good goal, maybe an overarching purpose, but maybe a goal for that time. So you've got a goal and you've got a skill level, you're pretty ready, pretty prepared to execute on it. You know what you're going to do. And then you kind of get to it and maybe set a time frame, 25 minutes to really focus on it and just allow yourself to just be into that element. So yeah, that's how I can get there, and I'd like to be there more often.
You
Um,
want to live there, which is just not
yeah,
realistic to be there all the time, right? But
yeah, it's not
that's why it's such an awesome experience because it's not happening all the time,
right.
right? Otherwise,
Yeah,
it'd be normal if you were there all the time, right?
yeah, yeah, that's right. Yeah,
So I
so
think the fact that it's a high, like it makes it special, right? At
yeah,
least that's my perspective.
yeah. I guess a core sort of element that I'm feeling here is that for people in the audience and for me to remind myself as well is to be a good friend to yourself and honor the capacity we have. So my business is called Human Capital Consulting, which is human capital, the resources, the unique resources we all have, our environment, our experience, our skill set, our goals, ambitions, human capital. How do we optimize that? And so I think honoring our capacity, honoring our goals, deserving. Yes, I want this. I can have this. I should have this. I'm okay to have it. I'm, you know, so honoring that and being a good friend to say, yeah, it's okay to want this, and that can be sort of permission to say, I want to try to work on this flow state. Um,
So I'm just got to wrap up. So I'm
yeah,
just going to let you have some closing remarks. So maybe I know you've got some books. If you got them with you, you can promote. Just closing remarks, closing thoughts, just before we wrap up our discussion. Just giving you the mic for a couple of minutes, whatever is on your mind and heart.
yeah. Thanks, Matt. This has been awesome. And yeah, I wrote two books. One's a journal. It's called My Magical Moments Journal. So it's really a story and journal, and there's quotes in there, motivational or thought provoking. So it's a journal and some science and my story of moving from burnout, let's say madness to magical. So for people who want to just really focus on the magical things in their life each day, maybe with a purpose that's aligned to those observations each day, people have found it's very simple, easy read and easy journaling, about 12 weeks of journaling. Um, the other book, which I'm going to send you, Matt, is this book, More Great, Less Grind.
I love
And
it.
so it's a series of 72 insights that I've written just on different elements of trying to experience more great and less grind in your life. So those are two books. I'm working on another called It's Okay to Close Your Eyes, with the idea it's okay to take a break. It's okay to close
Yeah,
your
to
eyes.
recharge, rest and
It's okay to
recharge, right?
recharge because I really believe that, rest and recovery is a high performance sport. So you think, well, doing nothing, I shouldn't do that. I don't deserve to do nothing. Well, doing nothing, actually, the body loves that. So
Rest is a high performance strategy. So that's the way
that's
you put
it.
it to
That's it.
me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, man. That's it. So, I guess to wrap up, yeah, I mean, we're special. We're here for some short duration. It's a bit undetermined, one-way trip, as far as I know, and we really deserve to really work at optimizing ourselves. And the beautiful thing about sort of me first there is when we're good to ourselves, we're even better for other people, and then we can really leverage our resources for the betterment of people around us and the world. So I really urge everybody to be kind to themselves, kind to others, be compassionate to themselves and others, and that's where expansion happens. That's where good things happen. That's where flow resides, and all kinds of
And
magic happens.
altruism. Yeah,
Altruism.
altruism. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So, last question for you: if people want to reach you, either to get their books or have you as a speaker or a coach, how can they reach you? What's the best way to reach out to you?
Yeah, so I have an email which is john@ourhumancapital.ca. My website is human capital, ourhumancapital.ca. Um, so those are the best ways to reach me. You can look at books on Amazon, and happy to chat. Yeah, I do speaking gigs and some individual coaching, and this has been fun, Matt. I really am honored to be here with you. I love chatting with you, Matt, and thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I just want to finish by expressing gratitude as well. So, thank you so much for sharing your flow experiences. I loved hearing about them. I loved seeing you light up, just reliving those memories. And for you, our listener or viewer, I really hope you get to have one of these deep flow experiences because those are, for me, some of the highs of my life are these flow experiences. So I really hope you get to have these experiences. And I really hope that John has helped you get there. So I'm just going to conclude. When I think of you, I think three words. So the first word is Zen. You know, you have this sort of calm presence about you. The next word would be wisdom. Every time I discuss with you, I always leave with some new perspectives. And the third word would be perseverance, because you've
Mm.
just those incredible Lake Ontario swims, and also, you know, your recoveries from burnout, these recoveries from these darker places. These are really inspiring too, you know, because the truth is we're not always in a peak state, and you know, you need to dig out sometimes. You got to dig deep. So even that, your perseverance was incredible. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your wisdom, and it's been great chatting with you.
That's great. Thank you, Matt. That's very kind of you. It's been a pleasure. Thanks.